Hey everyone, Mark over here at Twanger's Turntable. Hope you're doing well, enjoying your day. Going to jump on and join in this different thread that's not a lost classic of the 90s, but the 10 albums that we spin the most. Now, I've only seen a couple of these. I think Ron Beaudry and Josh over at the flip side jumped on this. I don't even know who started it or even if I got the criteria right, but essentially, I think the gist is 10 albums that we listen to most frequently. Now, not necessarily our favorites. Certainly, some of these will be my favorites. Certainly, favorites by an artist are going to be included here because those tend to be the ones I spin most often. But yeah, pretty much everything that is usually on my wall, I try and rotate of stuff that I'm listening to in a particular time frame, or that I listen to a lot. I mean, I just don't, I don't put a record on and listen to a song and put it away. I tend to album listen. When I put it on, I listen to it, flip it over. Some albums tend to take a little while to do that, so I don't do them as frequently. But anyway, I'll move on here to what this is all about. So it's 10 albums. I've picked 10 out of my collection, and some of them, as I alluded to, will be favorites from a certain artist, but they're certainly ones I spin the most, even if they're not my favorites, for whatever reason that is. And there's no mathematical equation. I didn't do a spreadsheet. Sorry, Steve. I don't keep a spreadsheet. That's a really good idea, though, actually, I must say. um, um, but yeah, no, that's not something I've done. I just going by memory, and in fact, some of these memories may be influenced by recent activities. For instance, I'm doing a lot of work in my music room, trying to get things organized and put away, make a space over there for the grandkids, so maybe they can be here with me, like I had at the old place. There's a lot of work involved, and it's much more work than I anticipated when we moved in, and then anyway, I'm not going to bore you with all that. That's none of your concern. So yeah, they're just ones that I put on when I'm doing stuff here, and they're going to be influenced by the ones I've listened to most recently. So I'll start off with one that has always been a favorite of mine from this particular artist, and so naturally it gets spun most often out of their entire catalog. And frankly, I like their entire catalog to a more or lesser degree, depending on the vocalist. They've had multiple vocalists, but I'm talking about Master Reality. This is to me when Black Sabbath was really hitting on all cylinders. Just unbeatable to me, that era. I love Dio. I love the Heaven and Hell, the Mob Rules, the stuff they did later on. Dehumanizer, the Heaven and Hell album they did that they couldn't call Black Sabbath, all that. I love it all. I love Dio's solo stuff. I love Ozzy's solo stuff. And now I'm getting completely off where I started. So let's back up here. Master Reality, definitely one of the ones I spin most to this day. Just love this album. And when I'm doing this thread, I don't know what the criteria is, as I alluded to. I'm not going to go into details about each album. Just my justification, or my, not justification, just that I spin it most. So that would be number 10. And they're not really in any particular order. So I shouldn't, ranking. It's not a ranking. That's the better way to put it. It's not a ranking. These are just, that was the 10th one that, I chose. So number 9, the just blistering album. When this came out, we were young teenagers. I'm saying we as in, if some of my old buddies, shout out to the old crew back home, are watching, I mean, there was not much better than this at the time. And we were just peer to peer. We didn't have internet. We didn't have all the details. So to us, you pull out this sleeve and you see Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge, and you're none the wiser, unless you were maybe part of the fan club or something like that. But even then, I don't know how much of that information was kept that we didn't know it was Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. Kerslake, of course, most people know from his days with um, Uriah Heep. Wow, brain fart. But this to me, especially the title track on here, "Diary of a Madman." I don't know if Ozzy ever got any better than that, in my opinion. Hard pressed to even say that any of his Sabbath stuff is better than that to me. Just that lineup was just incredible lineup, and of course Randy Rhoads. What can you say? Just such a small sample size of what he may have done on the first two albums, just incredible. So that's number 9. I spin that one a lot, quite frequently. Out of all the albums this band has, well, there's not really that many. This would be the one that I spin most often. Prior to this, I only had it on cassette and compact disc. Finally got it on vinyl last year, actually earlier this year. And then, of course, the debut from the Crue, Too Fast for Love. I was just talking about this with Vinyl Richie, because he was talking about just how amazing it must have been, the LA scene of glam rock. And of course, we didn't call it glam rock back then, or hair metal. We didn't call it any of those terms, or as he referred to it so eloquently, chicks with dicks. The hair metal, the early heavy metal. I mean, this was America's metal, and it's just basically a continuation of what was happening in the '70s. I mean, come on. I mean, artists like Angel and all those bands. I mean, they were doing this stuff already. I mean, to be argued, even Riot without the look, just that American metal sound. But this is my favorite. It gets spun the most by this band, and that is their debut. It is not the Leather Records issue, and it's not the original Canadian issue as well that had the Stick to Your Guns was on that release, and the cassette I had also had that tune on it, but not on vinyl for some reason. I don't know why, but that's number 8. Is it 10, 9, 8? Number 7. This has always been one of my favorites from this band. This probably is my favorite. Might be blasphemous to some, but yeah, Ride the Lightning, their second offering. I mean, I love Kill 'Em All, and I love Master of Puppets. I mean, I pretty much like everything Metallica has ever done, and that may be polarizing for some. I don't care. I mean, it's just, these are my records, and this gets spun the most by anything out of their catalog for sure. Ride the Lightning, just can't get enough. I mean, wow. I won't. But I mean, Creeping Death, that song alone. I mean, For Whom the Bell Tolls. It's hard not to talk about in more depth, so I won't, because it'll make it a really long video. But yeah, definitely this one. That's number 7. Number 6, another one of my favorites by this band. It's a toss-up, but certainly I chose this because this is my favorite vocalist this band ever had. To my knowledge, they only had 2, and 3 if you count the one they had when they did some live shows. But of course, it's AC/DC and Powerage. Just, this has always been my favorite. Bon Scott is my favorite AC/DC era, and this is my favorite out of that era. I mean, again, these are such marginal. It's hard to rank any of these. It's very difficult for me to rank, because I was kind of joking with Cody at on his channel. He was doing a Van Halen ranking, and those albums with David Lee Roth, to me, the separation between my favorite and my least favorite is almost non-existent. I mean, almost non-existent. I mean, really. And that's the way it is for the Bon Scott era. The Brian Johnson era, it's a little easier for me to rank and surprise, and not to be a contrarian, but surprise to some. Probably my favorite would be Flick of the Switch with Brian Johnson, not Back in Black, not For Those About to Rock, not Fly on the Wall, Blow Up Your Video, Who Made Who. I know it's more of a soundtrack, but I like all those albums. But anyway, this is definitely gets spun the most out of my AC/DC collection. And the next one is a very difficult one. Again, I'm choosing this one only because there's such little that separates it. But I think if I say over the recent years, this has probably taken over as my favorite album. And it used to be this. This was for a long time my favorite Priest album. So it's still near and dear to me. It's kind of the early 80s. That was just the sound, one of the albums that would create that soundtrack of my early teens. But in recent years, this has taken over. Stained Class is just Just a phenomenal album. That Beyond the Realms of Death. I mean, Saints from Hell. Geez, Heroes End. A great song, and frankly, he's talking about some of the past. Those who don't know, Jimi Hendrix, James Dean, Marilyn Monroe. Those people who die, um, before their time. Well, I guess it is their time, but whatever. Just a great album. Anyway, that definitely gets the most spins out of the Priest catalog presently. And another one of those artists. This is my favorite artist. I mean, and so this has changed over the years as well. So I'll do the same thing. Uh, in the past, certainly around that same era as Screaming for Vengeance, it would have, hands down, it would have been this. I mean, when this came out, it was just new. It was new vocalists. It was just a different sound, and dare I say, it was getting much more attention than their first two albums, right? With Deano on vocals, you bring in Dickinson, and it's just such a different, unique. There wasn't anybody, unless you had some old Samson. That's a poor example because it's not Bruce on vocals, but yeah, when this came out, I mean, definitely would have got the most spins then, but in recent years, a similar story. I spin these much more frequently. And this is where it started for me. So I've kind of come full circle, and I prefer these nowadays. And I used to have Maiden Japan, which was a live EP, the Canadian EP, and love that. I'd love to get that on vinyl, maybe one of these days, but I'm not sure where we're at. I've lost count. Anybody else counting? Um, anyway, I picked out a few more that aren't of that genre. Three more, just to try and put in a little variety here, some spice. And one of the artists I like might be blasphemous to some and surprising to some, in fact, but that's okay. But it's Elton John. And this is probably the one that I spin the most. Really, probably in no small part due to my wife, who loves this album. And I put it on. It's another one of those, like I spoke about the other day, that when it's on, it's just, yeah, great album. I like all of the Elton John stuff up to a point, up to probably the mid 70s, but yeah, this is just an incredible album, and it's the one I play the most by this artist. It's close though, as I alluded to with the others. Madman Across the Water, Captain Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. That's another one. Of course, Yellow Brick Road, but I don't know. This one, I guess maybe it has more memories associated with it, and oftentimes that's what it comes down to. I don't know, but certainly this one gets the most spins out of his catalog, and it's Tumbleweed Connection. For those who are not familiar with Elton John, this is when Elton John was really rocking. He was just a really good rock band. He always had excellent musicians playing with him, and of course that partnership with Bernie, the songwriting was wow. Anyway, and then another one that's maybe more just good, solid American rock, and that's the debut from the Cars. I still spin this one a lot. Now, as I mentioned when I started this video, there's a lot of albums I could have chosen to that would qualify in this top 10 of the records that I spin the most, because, like I say, that's basically my primary format. Unless I'm in my van at work, and I usually have just a little. I've got a little 64 gig USB that I stick in my van, and I play music on that. So even then, I'm not really streaming. It's stuff that I've put on my little USB and drive in the van. And other than that, I'm listening to vinyl when I'm at home. But this is such a stellar album. Oh man. Can't say enough about it. And last, but certainly not least, one of my favorite bands of all time has always been, and it comes down to primarily the drummer in this band. And no, it's not Rush. I could have chosen Rush, but there's just, and I could have chose any member of this band. In my opinion, they're all extraordinary performers. But this is the album I spin the most. And this actually one is not, I haven't broken the seal on this one yet. I've had this for a couple of years, but I have another one. So yeah, Physical Graffiti. Again, pretty much at the pinnacle for me of Zeppelin, um, which is funny because probably my favorite song is on Houses of the Holy, which is, you know, but anyway, yeah, I mean, No Quarter. I could listen to that. That would be one of the songs. If I could only take 10 songs to a deserted island, that would be one of the songs. Just love it. But I could say that about a lot of their tunes. Certainly, this is my most spun by Zeppelin. Again, my favorite by Zeppelin is probably whatever one I happen to be listening to. That's just the way it is with Zeppelin. That's the way it is with Maiden. It's the way it is with Metallica. It's the way it is with Priest. It's the way it is with Tool. It's the way it is with Megadeth. Any of these artists you see, whenever I'm listening to something, I'm usually totally immersed in it, and I love it. But I think that's one of the things we share here in the BC. No matter what it is you like and you're listening to, I know you close your eyes, you listen to it, and it's just amazing. I was saying that to Mickey over at his channel. He puts these little videos of him playing and laying down some tracks, and it's good stuff. Nothing, nothing speaks to me personally more than music, and imagining myself play the drums and whatnot, because that's essentially about the only way I can play them presently. They're sitting over there in the corner. I don't know when I'll ever get them set up again. My grandson keeps edging me to get them set up because I know he'd love to do it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. It's a fun thread. I don't have a lot of time to come up with my own creations. I did start doing a series months ago now of Nobody's Vault But Mine, and just going through my collection on vinyl. I hope to resume that one of these days. One of these days. Again, I could have picked Pink Floyd Metal. That album out of their catalog is one I spin the most. I mean, Animals. Oh, I love that whole era. Dark Side of the Moon, of course, but I love Pink Floyd. Gilmour is one of my favorite guitarists. Anyway, I'm going on and on, but I do enjoy doing that. I hope you enjoy it with me, and maybe it inspires you to go and think about the 10 albums you spin most often. Those are mine, at least presently. That is always subject to change. It's sometimes it just changes with the weather. I mean, couldn't stand the weather. Let's put on some SRV, right? So anyway, that's it. That's all. I hope you enjoyed it. I had fun doing it, and hope to see you again soon here at Twanger's Turntable. Take care, everybody. Cheers.